Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are The Real Movie Guys. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at Back to the Future. Marty McFly, a 17-year-old high school student, is accidentally sent 30 years into the past in a time-traveling DeLorean invented by his close friend and eccentric scientist, Doc Brown. This is a classic, John. Nothing to hide about that.
That's right, Kevin. We're going back to the future with this one.
This is one of my favorite movies, favorite franchises of all time, if not my favorite franchise of all time. Back to the Future, in my opinion, is the perfect combination of like family and sci-fi. And who doesn't love time traveling, right?
Where the hell are they?
The appropriate question is, where in the hell are they?
I mean, we're dedicating this whole month to time travel movies just because, you know, there's times where we wish we could go back and enjoy maybe a simpler or a more fun time. And Back to the Future just represents that perfectly, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's one of those movies that... It's also one of those movies of a franchise where they give you 3 good movies.
Right.
And then it ends.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, as much as we're gonna... I mean, spoiler warning, obviously, ahead. Like, I like all 3 of these movies. You know, some more than the others, but overall, this is like a near perfect franchise. Just all 3 of them together just really work, in my opinion.
Whoa, this is heavy.
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Yeah, and I also think that it's kind of also so amazing, too, how many people still love this movie.
Yeah, the fan base is insane for this series. I'm one of them.
Yeah, like, even the people that show up for this, they're dedicated, die-hard fans of this movie.
Yeah,
I think it's always great to see.
Yeah, I've wanted a DeLorean since I saw this movie as a little kid. You know, I've always wanted one. I wish I could get one. If I had that kind of money, you know, I'd be burning it right now going to get one.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
The way I see it, if you're gonna build a time machine into a car, why not do it with some style?
Why do you think people like this movie so much?
I think the actors and just the way the movie's all the way done.
I think you're on the right path there. I think the actors there's just something about them. It's like a magnetism almost to the characters. And I think also to how simple the story is. Like, it never gets too complicated at any point. You know, when you watch, especially when you get to time travel type stories, it can get a little convoluted, a little complicated as to, you know, going from the past to the future, back and forth, jumping around.
First, you turn the time circuits on. This readout tells you where you're going, this one tells you where you are, this one tells you where you were.
This movie never feels that way, right? You never feel lost at any point.
No, yeah, and also it's very relatable, I feel like. Like,
Yeah,
the things that they're going through, like when they go back to the past in this one, the things that they're going through, like, you can understand it very well.
Right.
You can think about, like, how that would be in, like, your own life, how, like, if something happened, how much your future now would change.
Well, I might have sort of bumped into my parents.
Great Scott! Let me see that photograph again of your brother. Just as I thought. This proves my theory. Look at your brother.
His head's gone. It's like it's been erased.
Erased from existence.
Let's
something
talk
in the
about
past
that.
happened.
So the initial concept of this whole movie had to do with Bob Gale, who's the scriptwriter for this movie. He essentially said to himself, what would it be like if I went back in time and saw my parents as kids?
Hey, McFly! What do you think you're doing?
Biff.
Hey, I'm talking to you, McFly, you Irish bug.
Oh, hey, Biff. Hey, guys. How are you doing?
And I think everyone can relate to that in some opinion, right? Like, you wonder, like, you know, your parents are always telling you, like, don't do this, don't do that, or...
I think it's terrible. Girls chasing boys. When I was your age, I never chased a boy or called a boy or sat in a parked car with a boy.
When I was a kid, I didn't act like that. But you really wonder at the same time, right? Like, you wonder if they're just saying that, blowing smoke out of their butt.
Do you mind if we park? For a while.
That's a great idea. I'd love to park. Huh? Marty, I'm almost 18 years old. It's not like I've never parked before.
What?
You know what I mean? Like, you're not too sure. And I think this movie captures that initial concept, regardless of the time travel, just being able to go back and see what your parents were like as kids. I think that's what captures so many people, because that's an amazing concept in and of itself.
Well, yeah, it also makes you think too, like, you listen to them, but you're like, we know that in your past you did some things that you probably shouldn't have and
It's like,
stuff.
you
and
know,
like,
but you don't know because you never saw it. So this gives you the opportunity in this movie, by having the time travel to go back in time, Marty's able to experience what his parents were really like, and then, in a way, make them better people.
Oh, you make it sound so easy. I wish I wasn't so scared. George, there's nothing to be scared of. All it takes is a little self-confidence. You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
well, yeah, and also I feel like this also helps you when you go back in time to, like, kind of see, like, how much alike you were with your parents.
All right, okay, Jennifer. What if I send in the tape and they don't like it? I mean, what if they say I'm no good? What if they say, get out of here, kid? You got no future. I mean, I just don't think I can take that kind of rejection. Get out of town. I didn't know you did anything creative. Let me read some. Oh, no. I never let anybody read my stories. Why not? Well, what if they didn't like them? What if they told me I was no good? I guess that would be pretty hard for somebody to understand. No. No, not hard at all.
Let's go into some of the characters of this movie. So beyond the story just being simple and easy to grasp, we kind of went over, just talking about that, how being able to see your parents. But again, with such a simple of a concept, you need some standout characters for sure just to carry this plot. Michael J. Fox, you cannot deny his enthusiasm.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But your kids are gonna love it.
Ironically, he wasn't even the first choice in this movie. They actually had another actor, and they actually subbed him out for Michael J. Fox. And there's footage of him actually being in this movie, the other actor. But Michael J. Fox, man, it's a shame, his health took a turn for the worse, later down in his life. Because I always wonder, like, where he would be nowadays, especially if he was just at the top of his health game. Not to say that he hasn't made some accomplishments as far as acting. He did Spin City, and he did some other, films. I think he was in, like, Scrubs for, like, a couple episodes, House. Like, he makes appearances here and there. Obviously, he's not, perfectly well to be able to carry on a full TV show. But Michael J. Fox just has such an innocence and charisma about him. It draws you into the story, hands down.
No, wait, Doc, the bruise in your head. I know how that happened. You told me the whole story. You were standing on your toilet, and you were hanging a clock, and you fell, and you hit your head on the sink. And that's when you came up with the idea for the flux capacitor, which is what makes time travel possible.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like an instant likability.
Well, also, too, like him just working with Christopher Lloyd in this whole movie throughout. I feel like their chemistry is so well together and done.
Listen, Doc, there's something I haven't told you about the night we made that
Please,
tape.
Marty, don't tell me. No man should know too much about his own destiny.
You don't understand.
I do understand. If I know too much about my own future, I can endanger my own existence. Just as you've endangered yours.
Definitely,
Christopher Lloyd's a whole nother animal in this. He carries the insane doctor like no other person I could possibly imagine.
What did I tell you? 88 miles per hour!
He's crazy, but at the same time, you're totally sympathetic to his situation. And
It's going to be really hard waiting 30 years before I can talk to you about everything that's happened in the past few days. I'm really going to miss you, Marty.
I'm really gonna miss you. Doc, about the future.
No! Marty! We've already agreed that having information about the future can be extremely dangerous. Even if your intentions are good, it can backfire drastically. Whatever you've got to tell me, I'll find out through the natural course of time.
Well, yeah, and you always compare Christopher Lloyd in this movie to all the other crazy scientists / doctors that are out there.
He's the
and
OG.
You're always like, they don't live up.
No.
But there's also another character I feel like in this where you see a lot of this character like nowadays, like in different movies.
Right.
And that's the Biff character.
What are you looking at, butthead? Say hi to your mom for me.
Right.
I feel like so many movies have brought like that kind of character, like the antagonist, the bully, that kind of character in so many movies now too.
Bring it over first thing tomorrow morning.
Hey, not too early. I sleep in Sundays. Oh, McFly, your shoes untied. Don't be so gullible, McFly.
Okay.
I don't want to see you in here again.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Well, it's tough because with Biff's a pretty dark character. You can argue a bit in this movie. Like he has some uncomfortable vibes. I want to give. He gives some of the ladies in this movie.
Oh, you want me to give it to you?
Shut your filthy mouth. I'm not that kind of girl.
Oh, well, maybe you are, and you just don't know it yet.
He's definitely like the bully, maybe pushing it a little hard at times, but he plays it so like he's an idiot, right? But he's an intimidating idiot.
All right, punk. Now I'm gonna...
Whoa, Biff. What's that?
Like he still has that aura about him. Like he can just kind of shove you around and do what he wants. But and also in a weird way, I feel like he's kind of likable. And just like a weird. It's hard to describe, but I want to see where his journey continues, and to see his evolution of a character is crazy too.
Now, Biff, I want to make sure that we get 2 coats of wax this time, not just 1.
Just finishing up the second coat now.
Now, Biff, don't con me.
I'm sorry, Mr. McFly. I meant I was just starting on the second coat.
Yeah, Biff, what a character.
But yeah, and he's so like just dumb though. Like it's almost amazing.
Make like a tree and get out of here.
So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Yeah, like,
and again, anyone else doing that, it might come across like forced or stupid. But when he does it, it just comes across like, wow,
natural.
Okay, okay, like I believe you.
Like you're naturally that stupid.
Yeah, and he's great. He's intimidating. He's a great foil. Crispin Glover, who's an amazing actor as well. A little crazy in his own right. He had some issues, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the series. But as George McFly, he's the perfect wimp, right? Like if you were to imagine someone being like this wimpy, I can't do anything kind of character, Crispin Glover captures that without a doubt.
Oh.
Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think, McFly, think. I gotta have time to recopy it. You realize what would happen if I hand in my homework in your handwriting? I'll get kicked out of school. You wouldn't want that to happen, would you? Would you?
Well, now, of course not, Biff. I wouldn't want that to happen.
And it's ironic because when he finally gets his victory towards the end of the movie, it feels so good, right? Like he finally punches Biff in the face and saves Lorraine.
Are you okay?
Feels great. Like I really felt good. And you can even tell like just Michael J. Fox, like I said, his charisma into this role. You kind of feel like everyone's working off each other, like all their interactions, like it feels natural. Like when he's happy, like I get real happy about it.
Who is that guy?
It's George McFly.
Like it definitely like works cohesively together.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And not even that. I mean, we can't forget Leia Thompson as well. Doing double roles, just like Crispin Glover and Biff for that matter. Thomas F. Wilson. They all play the double role, which we're gonna see that exasperated a little bit when we get to the next movie. But I like how we get to see them older and then younger, and then we come back to that later in the movie. I actually do like that idea of the dual role kind of experiment here. I think it works successfully for the most part. I mean, granted, they didn't have too much technology at the time. They had limited technology. They worked with what they had, but I think they did a really good job. I mean, the makeup looks pretty good, convincing that, they're older and younger at times. And everyone just carries it. I mean, everyone has their iconic lines. One of my personal scenes, I love the whole Johnny B. Good scene at the end, of course. Just, Marty rocking out, and he's slowly like fading away. You see his hands disappearing. And then, Crispin Glover and Leia Thompson, they kiss at the end, and then he perks right back up and starts playing. Again, this movie just has something about it. It's like an aura that captures you.
I always feel like there's those movies that you can watch once and you're okay with, but this one, there's so many different things, and so many times you'll use quotes from this movie.
Then tell me, future boy, who's president of the United States in 1985?
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, the actor?
That
Right.
you'll just think about, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's from this movie.
Doc! Oh, I have to tell you about the future! I have to tell you about the future!
And this is one of those movies, too, where when I was young, I loved this movie. And a lot of it went over my head, I think, for the most part. Like, a lot of the jokes I didn't get. I don't think I was old enough to really understand them. But it's interesting, as I grow older, I find myself enjoying this movie even more because I'm starting to get both sides of the jokes.
I don't know what to say. Well, just say anything, George. Say, whatever's natural. Well, the first thing that comes into your mind.
Nothing's coming to my mind.
Jesus, George, it was a wonder I was even born.
What? What?
Nothing.
Like, when I'm ready to have kids and whatnot, it's the same kind of thing. Like, I could see myself being that way and seeing it from a certain perspective. Like, me telling a kid not to do this when in reality I did the same thing. Like, I definitely relate to not just Marty's side, but I think I relate more to his parents' side as well in this film. That makes it a perfect family film because everyone's going to find something to relate to. Maybe the kids won't understand everything overtly the first time, but then you have the parents understanding more so and having more enjoyment out of it, being able to watch it together.
Well, yeah, and I also feel like the storyline's not so crazy, like we said, too, that kids can enjoy this movie, too.
Right, and it's just the easy time travel movie, right? You go back into the same timeline, you're messing around with it.
5, I can hang out, you can show me around.
Marty, that is completely out of the question. You must not leave this house. You must not see anybody or talk to anybody. Anything you do could have serious repercussions on future events. Do you understand?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Marty, have you interacted with anybody else today besides me?
It's very simple time travel, and I think that just makes it engaging. Like, you don't have to think too much. Like, if Marty does this, if he does this, it'll affect something in the future. And I think that's really simple, and I really like that. Again, I can't stress enough how a simple storyline will go a long way sometimes, and you just have good actors to back it up. And as long as the script is tight, which in this movie, by far, it's the tightest script I've ever seen, it absolutely works in every way, sense of the form. I'd be remiss, honestly, if I didn't talk about the soundtrack. Alan Silvestri is one of the main reasons I think all these movies work, and we'll talk about it, as we go as well. But his score, it adds something to this movie. Just when you hear the little jingles here and there, like when like you said, when the time machine first appears, you hear the dun-dun-dun. Like this, it has this sound. Like wherever I go and I hear Back to the Future, I can identify a scene by the score that's playing, because it adds the emotion. It adds a layer that you rarely see today in movies, in my opinion. It's so engrossing that, again, we'd be remiss if we didn't speak about it, because it just adds so much, especially like when there's a big victory or there's a scene where, you know, something's not going quite right. Again, it just adds. I don't know how else to say it. Again, it's kind of sounds silly the way I'm talking about it, but it does. It really makes this movie identifiable. The sound design in general too, just the sounds of the DeLorean makes. It's hard to find like new things to talk about with this movie because everything's been said, right? I mean, there's very few people that I've ever met that don't enjoy Back to the Future, and I can understand why. Even if it has, I mean, the only argument you can make if you really wanted to nitpick something is I think at times it does get a little dark. You know, maybe that's just today's culture reflecting back on it. There are things that are a little weird, like Marty almost making out with his mother.
This is all wrong. I don't know what it is. But when I kiss you, it's like I'm kissing my brother. I guess it doesn't make any sense, does it?
Believe me, it makes perfect sense.
It's a little weird. You know, the whole, you know, rapey vibe Biff gives.
Well, looky what we have here. No, stay right here with me. Come on, Lorraine. Come on. Leave her alone, you bastard. You got take him in back, all right? I'll be right there. One. Come on. Well, go on. This ain't no peep show.
Isn't the most particularly endearing part of this movie. It was a different time, you know. We were able to be a little more loose with our morals, I think, at times. Not saying it's right, but I'm saying it's there. But again, looking beyond that, the story is just fantastic, beginning to end. This movie is at a breakneck pace the whole time. It moves from. I never felt bored. There was never a scene where I was just like it was milling around doing nothing. Everything was in it that needed to be in this film.
All around, this film was really good.
In my opinion, it's near perfect. I would say, to be 100% honest with you. Like you said, I can always find myself going back to it. We didn't talk about one of the stars of this movie too much. The DeLorean itself. Now, the DeLorean, in my opinion, was an excellent choice. A car is practical. It's not something you would think of right off the bat. At least I don't think I would. You would think like some kind of machine you would go into and go back to the future. But you want to be able to bring it with you. So what works better than a car, right? So I think they had that concept down. Then they said to themselves, well, what looks futuristic? And most cars by that time, you know, you don't want like a spaceship. You don't want, you know, whatever. So they picked the DeLorean, and the DeLorean it was a limited run car overall. There weren't too many. There was a lot of issues. There's a whole story about the DeLorean, which maybe we'll cover someday. There's actually a really good documentary about that as well. That being said, the DeLorean is the perfect blend of just futuristic looking, right? With its latching doors that open up on the side and its body, its metallic, sleek shape. that was the perfect car to tell me that's going to take me, in time. And just the design of the car in general, just like the mechanics that are put on, there's so much thought.
This is what makes time travel possible. The flux capacitor.
Flux capacitor.
And you have to wonder at some point, were they really thinking that deep? Because there's fans that go out there to recreate the DeLorean, and they do everything possible. They look at the actual like photos and scenes, and they make sure it's like a photo replica of that car. Like they believe literally that every part of that DeLorean actually works or has some kind of function. And you have to wonder if the filmmakers really had that intention, but the detail, when you actually sit there and look at that car, okay, good job.
People who get the DeLorean are so happy because of this movie too.
Right.
I feel like it brings so much to so many people.
No, it does. Again, the fan base is one of the biggest reasons I think this movie has such a long-lasting legacy, just in the hearts and minds of people. Because, again, it was so impactful to such a generation, myself included. I mean, there's just so many things I could really talk about this film. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. We probably should start to wrap up this review. I'm going to give Back to the Future an A+.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious shit.
No surprises. This movie's, again, as I said earlier, it's near perfect, in my opinion. It's a masterpiece. It does everything you want in a time travel movie. An amazing cast, a simple story. You can just throw it on, hang back, enjoy the ride. You can watch it with your kids. You can watch it by yourself. There's not much this movie can't do, to be honest with you. I really enjoy it, hands down. John, where do you stand with this film?
A+.
Yes, I'm George McFly. I'm your density.
It's one of my all-time favorite movies. It has everything you want in a movie, and just adding the Back to the Future part and everything else to it.
Time travel.
The DeLorean's so awesome. It's just everything together works so well that I feel like it's one of those movies that there's really not much fault to it.
If you're going to watch a series, I think Back to the Future is one you should definitely get into. If for some reason you haven't at this point, but overall, can't recommend Back to the Future enough.
Definitely not.
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
John, where can the people find us at home?
You can find us on YouTube, where we encourage you to like our channel, subscribe.
Definitely.
Comment down below what you thought of this movie, or are you a huge fan of this series of Back to the Future? Also, you can find us on Twitter at TheReelMovieGuys on Twitter. You can also find us now on Instagram and Facebook. The Real Movie Guys on Instagram and Facebook. We're over there. You can check us out over there. And you can also listen to us on many podcasting platforms, such as...
Yes, for your listening pleasure, we are also available in podcast form at iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Overcast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places. If you already are right now, hey, greatly appreciate it. Just search Real Movie Guys. We should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. This guy over here, he's John. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. And don't forget, the future's real. We'll catch you next time.
Great Scott!